Well, hello there. Thanks for stopping by the show. Went and sat down with one of my favorite people at Nuçi Space. Abby Winograd is the marketing and communications manager on Bob Sleppy's team. We talk about her life journey that led her to Athens, Georgia, and the subsequent role in which she serves today. We discuss the different services and programs offered under the CARE umbrella that is Nuçi Space. Linda Phillips would have been 50 years old on July 21st. Though no longer with us, this magnificent organization continues to care for the people of Athens, Georgia. They will soon be celebrating their 25th anniversary next year. Please consider donating if you are able by clicking on the link in the show notes. Every little one-time or monthly recurring donation we are able to make to Nuçi Space enables them to provide services to those in need. Enjoy the show.
The first time I ever heard a Linda Phillips song, it was a Christmas song on a local compilation that I had a track on. My band, Drive-By Truckers, was brand new, and we were invited to put a tune on Flagpole's Christmas CD for the fall of 1996. We were just starting out and were thrilled for the local exposure from Athens, Georgia's Venerable Weekly. Our song was followed on that comp by this absolutely amazing song. Christmas Time was a perfect confection of pop craftsmanship and heartbreak with powerful rhythm section, jangly guitars, and a voice of angst-filled longing. It began with some banter and laughter and was capped with sleigh bells. It was my favorite song of the year that year, and I couldn't wait to see that band play it live. I never got to. On Thanksgiving that year, Linda Phillips, the singer, songwriter, and guitar player that created that beautiful song, took his own life after a long losing battle with depression. He left behind a community of friends and family that loved him dearly and were heartbroken by their loss. I never got to meet Nuçi, but was stung by the longing in that one song of his that I had heard, and a life so full of promise and talent cut short. A few months later, I rode with a mutual friend of ours to Atlanta to pick up the first pressing of Koncak's debut album, Only the Right Side Glows. It spent weeks in my player and is still nearly 20 years later an album that I can come back to and love. Suicide runs rampant in our modern society and is even worse among artists, musicians, and the other creative sects of our culture. Athens is a quaint and beautiful college town, an hour and a half northeast of Atlanta, but it is also an arts and music town with one of the most renowned music scenes anywhere and the problems that accompany any such demographic. In the 21 years that I lived there, I lost way too many friends to depression and the hazards that go with it. One of my friends that killed himself was dating a beautiful girl named Rebecca, who was also my friend. The survivor's guilt and depression that followed nearly swallowed her up, but she survived thanks to the efforts of a wonderful woman named Linda Phillips and the amazing organization that she created to deal with her own unspeakable grief from losing her own son to suicide. In time, Rebecca became my girlfriend and is now my wife and the mother of our 2 children. In a way, I owe everything I hold dear to Linda Phillips and the organization that she founded and built in the name of her golden son, Nuçi. I'll let her tell you all about Nuçi Space in her own words in due time, but I first heard about it before they opened their doors in the fall of 2001. My band played the first of what became an annual series of benefits for them in the fall of 2000. As our band's stature grew, so did our fundraising activities for their cause, as did my friendship with Linda and the fine staff that made it all happen. In 2008, my wife Rebecca and I joined their board of directors and remained there for 7+ years. Rebecca was even their president for a few years. We have witnessed firsthand many of the amazing, even miraculous things that they have accomplished. We have seen them change lives and save lives. Linda is without question one of the most amazing people I've ever known, and our love and respect for her has no bounds. Her story is heartbreaking and inspiring, sobering and uplifting. I am filled with awe and gratitude for knowing her and getting to witness so much of it with my own eyes. One night around the time our community was yet again grappling with the loss of one of our own, this time from the suicide of Vic Chestnut, she and I fell into a really deep and somber conversation about it all. Vic was a friend and also possibly the greatest songwriter that I've ever known. His battles with depression were legendary to the end, and his death on Christmas Day of 2009 had to hit way too close to the heart for Linda. She said that for all the good they do, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Some people aren't able to be saved. She said that Nuçi Space probably couldn't have saved Nuçi, yet she did what she did to try to help the ones that could be. It was one of the most moving things I've ever heard anyone say, and a testament to the kind of person that Linda is. As I write this, Nuçi Space is about to celebrate their 15th anniversary. They have given hundreds of talented people a chance to survive their own brains, and the world is a much more beautiful place for each and every one. It's a better place for Linda Phillips and the wonderful organization she founded to avenge the loss of her amazing son. Her story is one that needs to be told. Patterson Hood, August 1st, 2016.
Dear Nuçi, while it seems strange sitting here writing a letter to you, somehow it feels right. There was never a reason to write to you while you were alive, then we could talk. I'm consoled by the fact that I never said goodbye to you without saying I love you. And even though I didn't get to say a final goodbye, a final I love you, I know in my heart that you heard it. Remember the time you asked me what I would do if something happened to Daddy? I know now that what you were really asking was what would I do if something happened to you, if you died. At the time, I said it would devastate me, but I'd go on. Later, I wished I had said that it would destroy me. I wouldn't be able to go on. In truth, your death did devastate me. At first, I wished I would fall apart and have to be put away and forgotten. But because of Daddy and KP, I had to go on. You inspired me to live and find purpose again, because I knew that's what you would have wanted. I'm so sorry that you died in a dark room, alone and in pain. I would give my life to have you back in the warmth of our family. I want you to know that I've taken my pain and used it to try to save other mothers from the pain of losing their children, but most of all to save others who suffer from the same cruel illness that you did. Wherever you are, I know you are no longer suffering. You told me in a dream, remember? And in your memory, so many have been helped. You were a good son and a gift to us. There are no words that come near to expressing how loved and missed you are, but I think you can look into each of our hearts and feel the warmth that will always burn for you. I love you. All my love forever, Mama.
Well, thanks for coming. I moved away from Athens in 2001, right before, I guess, Linda kind of started the whole idea of Nuçi space after Nuçi passed. And of course, I've read her book a couple times. I refreshed myself on the audiobook yesterday and today. And I think that's what kind of drew me to volunteering here was we moved here in 1980. So I was around like during this crazy vacuum of good music that was coming through town. And it sort of reinvigorated my love for Athens. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Miami, Florida.
If you want to pull that closer, you can too.
I'm from Miami, Florida.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was born in 1999. So,
God, I'm old.
I'm young. But I've been in Athens for about 6 years.
Oh, cool. What did UGA bring you to town?
Yeah, it did. I went to sleepaway camp in North Georgia growing up. So, I had some exposure to Georgia, and I had and still have some family in Atlanta. And I did youth group growing up, Jewish youth group, and I was in the Southeast region. So we had conventions every year with kids across the Southeast. So I had a lot of friends in Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately, I wanted to take a gap year after high school. And Florida public schools don't let you defer to take a gap year. They make you reapply.
Damn it.
And I didn't want to have to do applications while I was abroad and traveling and having a good time. So I deferred from UGA.
Yeah.
And I figured that I would get in-state tuition eventually, which I did not get that. UGA is much stricter about in-state tuition than other colleges are. But
you have to be a resident for how long is it?
you know what?
It's a little while.
They actually told me that unless I had lived in Georgia as a resident before having moved to there for UGA, sans like getting married, there was no way they were going to give it to me. I reapplied every year of school, and I had changed immediately upon getting there, like all of my voter's registration and I had work and I had all the things that they had on their list, but they just wouldn't give it to me.
Damn it.
Yeah.
And you went to, and I think I read you went to Jerusalem for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
After high school?
Yeah. I lived in Israel for a year. I was part of the conservative movement in Judaism, not conservative politics, but like the sect of conservative Judaism, has a leadership program called Nativ, which basically means like pathways. And I was on that program for a year, and I did a semester in Jerusalem where I took Ulpan, which is immersive Hebrew, at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and I did different leadership seminars and conferences and that kind of stuff. And then I did a semester in Tiberias, Tveria, and I worked in elementary school.
I've never been over there, but the countryside, it looks like a beautiful place. Obviously rich in a lot of different, things. But now your folks were in nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Both my parents actually met working for the Anti-Defamation League.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is.
A little bit.
But the Anti-Defamation League is an organization that fights for social justice issues, primarily having to do with Jews.
Okay.
They kind of set the stage for what is anti-Semitism and what is not. But my mom is a lawyer. She doesn't practice law, but with ADL, she was doing a lot of helping people file lawsuits against discriminatory places. I was, for instance, with her in Myrtle Beach recently for a little mom and daughter vacation, and she was talking about how her first ever case with the ADL was helping lifeguards in Miami, Florida, basically file a suit because they were being discriminated against for their Judaism.
Really?
They were being made to work on Saturdays when they were Shomer Shabbos, which means keeping Shabbat, but also they were being given spots that were less safe. They were being given less hours. They weren't being given very good conditions.
Wow.
And my dad used to go undercover in different types of meetings from KKK to Al-Qaeda.
Really?
You'd be amazed what a very Semitic-looking man can do with some different garb.
That is, wow. It's like not only dangerous, but That's super cool.
Yeah, yeah. So they met in New York City at a meeting for the ADL.
Wow.
But she was living in Florida. I think he was living in New York.
That's fascinating. So what did you go to school for when you came up to Georgia?
International affairs,
Okay.
with a focus in security,
Yeah.
which I tell people it was a focus in terrorism, because most of the classes I was taking were about terrorism. And then my minor, or my certificate, so to speak, was in sustainability.
Very cool. What brought you to the space? What made you start work? You were a volunteer coordinator for a while.
Yeah. It's a funny story. So
I want to hear it.
yeah, so I actually lived for my first 2 years of school. I actually lived at 188 Williams Street for my first 2 years of school. Basically, I walked up here really early on into living at my apartment complex, and I was like, this place is awesome. Would you want to hire me? And the person working at the front desk, who now I would understand was probably just a volunteer, basically responded that, Nuçi Space doesn't hire very often, and when they do, it comes from the volunteer base. But thanks for asking. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll make a mental note of that, but I need a job. And so I actually didn't return to Nuçi Space for a number of years, but over the course of being in school, I was pretty involved in the music scene, mostly as a viewer and supporter, but here and there I played some music, or I sang.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, people don't really know that about me now, but I was once more of a musician in the scene than I am now. But I used to host open mics at my house, and I used to sing on the background of some friends' tracks and
No
that kind of
kidding.
stuff. Yeah.
That is super cool.
And then when I was I graduated fall of 2021, a couple of months before graduation, Adam Waiton, who was the facilities and operations manager, now does not work here any longer. He basically sent me a DM on Instagram and was like, I'm hiring for a volunteer coordinator. I know you generally from the scene, and I have a feeling you'd be pretty good at it. Would you like to come interview? And I went, sure. I had actually just started working at the Grit.
Yeah.
And I was finishing up school. And so in my head, I was like, well, I just started my dream serving job because I'm a vegan at the Grit. But yeah, I'll come in for an interview. And then I got the job, and I was only the volunteer coordinator for less than 2 months. I started the beginning of November or something like that. And around middle of December, Bob called me into his office and was like, we're going to be creating a position, the marketing and communications manager. At the time, they called it public relations manager. And he was like, would you like to be this position? And I had talked to Bob pretty much a few times, but my degree is not in marketing.
Right.
I think pretty much I had shown some people how to use Instagram a bit more than they were currently using.
Qualified.
Yeah. And so I told Bob, I was like, do you want to see my resume? And he was like, it's probably good to have on file, but, I'm not really concerned about it. And he was like, I just have a feeling about you being in this position.
I love that.
And I said, sure. And I told my parents, and the second that I graduated, pretty much I started working here full time as the youngest manager and the youngest person on the leadership team.
That's funny you say that, because I was listening to the audiobook, A Beautiful Here, which I'll put a link to it in the show notes. If you haven't read it, you should, because it's a great story about Linda Phillips and her life journey and why she came to create the space. But she talks about Bob, and I guess she had a feeling about Bob. She knew that he hadn't graduated college, but she knew that he was the right guy, with the passion that he had. So that's cool that Bob had that feeling about you too. Yeah.
I think that spirit Linda had of kind of gut feelings and putting, the way Bob would say it, the right people on the bus and figuring out the seats on the bus later on was something that she showed him and that he carried forward. I know he did it for other positions besides mine, but at the time of my getting hired, I read the book, and pretty much instantly I realized that was kind of what was going on. And I saw it as a mentorship in the same way that I think he probably saw it as a mentorship at the time.
That's cool. Did the Grit close?
Yeah.
It did. Did Michael Stipe own that block? Did he sell? I heard he sold that strip of buildings, but I don't know if I don't know if you heard or if you knew. That's a shame because it's such a beautiful little
I think
spot.
someone else was the owner at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I also heard Hendershots is in a little bit of turmoil right now and may have to close.
They fundraised and they reached their goal.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
that's great to hear.
Yeah, they needed something like 19,000, and they raised like 21,000 in a matter of days, which is wild.
That's
But
fantastic.
It shows what happens when you tell the community that you're in need. I think people felt largely, I think after the Grit closing was that had they been given advance notice, I think they would have galvanized behind it and kind of fortified the situation so that the Grit wouldn't close.
Yeah.
But no one was told it was in threat of closing. They were just told it was closing. So there was nothing people could really do about it. And it was pretty sad.
No relocation or anything, just shut.
No, I'm under the impression that the owner just wanted to change,
Damn, that's a shame.
change things. Yeah.
Well, that was certainly a staple of Athens. Before that, I remember as a kid going to the Bluebird Cafe, which was around for a long time. Anyway, yeah, that's a shame. I hate to hear that.
Yeah.
I hear you have a feisty cat.
Yeah, I have a cat named Simon. And so my mom works for the Humane Society, and my dad works now for the American Jewish Committee, which she works for the Humane Society of the United States. Her job is remote, but she's the director of bequests for the Southeast. And my dad is I believe, assistant director of the American Jewish Committee in South Florida, which they've always been in nonprofit work. Usually one of them, at least, involved in Jewish nonprofit work, which means that, I grew up in a very strong Jewish bubble, but also in a very, very strong nonprofit household. My parents knew at least one of us kids would end up doing that too.
Yeah.
But we grew up, aside for the Judaism and the general spirit of we don't have much, but a chunk of what we give is always going to go to others. We also grew up with forgive my language, fuck ton of pets.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So pretty much as soon as I could get a pet, I got a pet.
Well, I was always allergic to cats growing up, and we just got 2 kittens who are, one is Stevie Nicks.
Oh,
The other one is Cosmo.
cute.
And it's, oh my God, I'll have to show you pictures next time I'm up here, but
Simon is actually Paul Simon.
There you go.
Yeah, at the time when I named him, I regretted it a little bit later on because I didn't realize how disliked Paul Simon had become in the general public. But now, as years pass, I actually really stand by naming him that. And I think the way people blackball artists for things at the time, and for maybe I don't know enough about Paul Simon, from my research, the things at the time that were done, were very typical of the music world. And now we're applying like current values to the way that music industry operated back then. I don't think it's very fair.
Yeah, it was way different.
I think his music was, world changing.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what's sorry, I bounced around just a little bit, but what is in your current role? Let me do this. I want to tell you what my impression of the services and such are of Nuçi Space as I understand them, and then maybe you can correct me. So obviously, the space was designed and created as a way to help the musician community in Athens attain health and wellness services that it's either feast or famine in the music industry, and the lion's share of folks in Athens that are musicians probably don't have insurance, so don't have access to good health care. So my understanding was that the space will help supplement that, if not fully pay for all of that for people that are in need. Was it always, the thought was always kind of suicide at the front because of the relationship to Nuçi. But then I think I read that Nuçi's maybe expanded a bit and started offering like some mobile. I remember seeing a picture maybe of like a mobile health clinic coming on site once. What all does Nuçi Space do, and kind of how do you tie into the spreading of the message? Does that make sense?
There's so much that we do.
Okay.
So we have 3, let's call them like primary programs: health and wellness, musicians services, and youth programs. So all 3 should be seen probably as puzzle pieces that work into one another, one person that's receiving help from health and wellness may also be in both of the other programs, or they might only be in one of those programs and not need the other two. But our musicians services, we have our practice rooms, we have our Rewired Gear program where people donate gear, we fix it, we resell it at really affordable rates. So it's sustainable, and it's also, it gives people access to gear and instruments they might never get access to otherwise. And we also do gear rentals at really affordable rates for shows and parties and whatnot. And then we have our recording studio, Amplify, which we are growing, but that's, going to be some of the best rates you'll see for a recording studio. And it's in a safe environment where we're trying to keep people healthy and like in community with one another. And then with our health and wellness program, our wellness advocacy program, where we get people connected to counseling or psychiatry or potentially other things they might need. That's our primary program. We have wellness advocates, right? We don't have counselors, so we're not calling ourselves the professionals in mental health. We're calling ourselves the professionals in advocating for your mental health and in being the liaison, the case manager, et cetera, to making sure that you are on the correct path.
And you're connecting them with resources.
And keeping up with them to make sure that those resources are good. And then other parts of our health and wellness program include support groups. So we have survivors of suicide, which is one of the first things that Linda did was create Survivors of Suicide Support Group, which is for people impacted by suicide in their lives. And that meets every third Wednesday of the month still. Before we even had a building, we had Survivors of Suicide, actually, because someone came to Linda whose daughter died by suicide and really needed support. And Linda was like, let's talk about it. And that was, the foundation of that support group. We also have Recreate Joy, which is a recreational therapy support group.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
And we do that at Sunny Days Therapeutics. And it's for a number of sessions that people sign up for. We call them like installments, so to speak. And people do art and movement and play, and all facilitated by a recreational support therapist. And we've had other support groups over the years, but really it comes down to what people are interested in and what we're able to help put on, what best aligns with our mission. And then otherwise for health and wellness, we have medical clinics, which is through, and there's a longer title for this, but Augusta and UGA, the Medical Partnership Program, they have their med students. The med students have to do a number of, I'm forgetting the word.
Like a residency?
Residencies, yeah. And so every year we have students placed with us under the care of a doctor, and we put out flyers to the community on the dates that are provided to us. And there's a number of things that on the flyers that we say we can or cannot do. It's for people without insurance as well. And they get to come in and have themselves checked out for free.
That's
and
awesome.
have prescriptions written for them if they need it. We can't do x-rays. That's one of the things we can't do. Sometimes we have vaccines. And then otherwise, aside for the medical clinics, this was in the past. I'm not sure if it will come back because it was through Music Cares, which is a different organization that we received the benefit of, basically. But Music Cares had a mobile dental clinic that would come by once a year for us or twice a year. And right now Music Cares is restructuring, so we're not sure when that's coming back. And we also had an earplug clinic. We do eye care vouchers for 5 Points Eye Care.
Who was my eye doctor for years and years. Yep.
Wonderful, yeah.
He does a ton of volunteer work over, speaking out of step here, but I know he's involved with a lot of volunteer work over in like Africa and anyhow, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. And then from our youth program, we have what started as Camp Amped was our primary youth program. That was a need expressed by the community, kind of like a Camp Rock, but while teaching kids music in a band setting is the way in which we teach the actual goal is teaching survival skills, coping mechanisms, communication skills. We're preparing young people to be in the real world as adults and to be compassionate and resilient and have the tool belt, so to speak, to live healthy and happy lives together while pursuing their dreams.
Yeah, yeah.
And so all of these things work and play with one another because people come in and it's a clean, safe, kind place that someone who comes in might just be coming in for a practice room, but they might be struggling and they might see the openness by which people talk about mental health and suddenly realize that, they do want to get help, and they'll come to our health and wellness room and, ask to schedule an appointment, and, the mission carries on.
That's fantastic. We, I did an interview. Last time I was here, I was with Sam Holt, and we were, he is a big proponent of Nuçi space, and we were talking about the renting these rooms is very affordable. I failed to mention that you can rent instruments, cymbals, mic stand, like everything you need to play your music in a safe environment you could do here. So I kind of dropped the ball on that. I should have mentioned that in addition to the rooms, obviously, but there's a full suite of musical instruments that you can rent by the hour too.
Yeah,
so
and you can also get your practices recorded by Amplify.
That's right. Now, I heard a rumor, tell me if this is right, that Nuçi's is looking to start a almost like a sound production thing for kids too. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually had our first session this past summer.
Oh, okay.
It just ended. But yeah, it was Camp Amplify ran during Camp Amped. So the kids have their own schedule each day, but they have parts that have to do with, the group activities of all of Camp Amped.
Okay.
And this past Saturday when we had our Camp Amped finale, the Camp Amplify music production band in quotation marks, they, from 5 to 6 p.m. when doors opened, they did kind of like a listening room to the tracks they made.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
Hell, I would do that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
And also Sam Holt last year and continuously fundraises, does percentages of his shows, of the Sam Holt Band shows for Preempt, which is part of our youth programs. Preempt is our after-school program. Yeah. Mikey has our Preempt music program where our youth program team goes to after-school programs and teaches kids music for free, going to them and helping parents so that, their kids are able to have the music education that they might not get otherwise. And this past year, we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club. So we've been going to the Boys and Girls Club and throughout the year after school. And this past summer, which was really beautiful to see, a lot of the Boys and Girls Club campers kids that we had been working with throughout the year ended up being campers at camp. So that's really one of the goals of Preempt, is to be able to begin that relationship so that the kids can grow up with us and get those life skills that we facilitate and we grow through Camp Amped. So it was really rewarding to see so quickly the pathway get developed and work. One of the other things we do in our health and wellness program is called QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, Refer, and it's a suicide prevention training. And so we offer them free to the public at least once a month in-house, but we also go to different businesses and organizations in Athens, and we equip their staff or their teams, whomever has requested a training, we equip them with the tools by which to spot a crisis and intervene and get someone to the help that they need. It's a really wonderful training, and I just think Athens is such a strong community, and being able to give people the tools to look out for one another and to create an even safer space together is one of the most important things that we can all be gathering behind.
That's fantastic. So relative to your position, what does a typical day look like for you? What are your responsibilities and what are you focusing on?
Yeah. So when I got hired, I was unofficially told that I'm the chief storyteller.
What year was this around about?
2021.
Got it.
Oh, it was fall of 2021. I started this role in January of 2022.
Okay.
So I've been in this role for a little over 2 years, 2.5 years.
Chief storyteller, is that what you said?
Yeah, unofficially. But no day is the same, but I am responsible for communicating and sharing everything we do every single day with the public. And communicating that story, telling that story. And so both I'm trying to get people who need help from us in the door, and I'm trying to get people that align with our mission that don't necessarily need help from us, but have the either networks or finances or, whatever else they might be able to help us with, to become advocates or ambassadors of us. And so every single day I am doing a lot of writing, graphic design, photo, video, social media, coordinating, website management, most of which, aside for writing and basic graphic design and knowing how Instagram works, I learned over the past 2.5 years through trial and error. But going into this job, pretty much the only thing that I would have said on my resume that I am quite good at is writing. And that's the thing that I probably do the most here.
Right. That's great.
And then it's a lot of public speaking or interviews or coordinating of events and event facilitating. Up until this past year, now we have a community engagement coordinator who is Terry, and that's a lot of that's under development, but it's a lot of the event planning and stuff. But up until that position was created, a lot of the event planning I was one of the main people doing it.
Got it. Sam and I talked about, I found a great film that is on YouTube. I don't know if it's anywhere else, but it was that The Silence Between the Notes, and that was really touching. And I shared with Sam that Barry Buck narrates much of that, and made me realize how vulnerable Athens musicians were. And I hadn't thought about that, like during the pandemic. They're completely shut down, and everyone from vendors to promoters, that whole sector of the music business just had to have been hammered because there wasn't much going on. But that was a great film, and I'll share that in the show notes. Another rumor I heard, and I'll edit this out if need be, is there talk of opening another Nuçi space? Ooh. Can you speak to that or no?
I can speak to it.
Okay.
So we announced in January that we are beginning the process of expanding, which is to say that we are celebrating next year our 25th anniversary.
Fantastic.
We've grown a lot over the years, and we had a staff and board retreat a year and a half ago, and basically the main consensus was that we needed to scale inward and scale outward, which sounds contradictory, but really the feeling was that we wanted to continue growing outward and to begin the process of, making another Nuçi space or getting the work that we do in more places, but we needed to scale inward first / at the same time in some ways to really hone in on policies and procedures and methodology before scaling outward. And so I actually have nothing I could even try to give away because I'm not plugged into all of the current thinking and planning going on in Bob, who is now our CEO's work over the last few months. But Bob has been traveling and talking to people and kind of identifying places and scenes that might benefit from the work that we do.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's pretty far away.
Yeah.
But we've definitely we restructured our staff and our leadership team to reflect this scaling inward and creating new accountability charts and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we've become much more practiced and consistent regarding meetings and note taking and systems and all of that. You can imagine is quite I would say what's a good phrase? I'm trying to think of like an idiom to use, but I don't know if I can think of one of my brain is on the spot. But it's difficult for musicians and artists and like a 99% ADHD staff to adopt consistent practices altogether.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one because I fight that too. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Like I'll get a project about 99% of the way done, and then Squirrel.
Yeah. And so now we have these things called rocks, which are like primary accountabilities. We each get a few rocks every quarter, and we don't get to say squirrel. We got to finish the rock, which has been, I think, a growing pain for all of us. But in a good way, where we're seeing results. It's just we don't get the thrill of dopamine when we change topics.
Well, it's an interesting, so you and I have been talking a little bit back and forth over the last month or so about getting together to have this conversation. Yesterday would have been Nuçi's 50th birthday.
Yeah.
I did see I'd got an email from you guys, and I was very happy that you reminded me that you can, I think the general message of the email was, hey, if you can do a one-time donation, or if you can set up a monthly recurring donation in the amount of $7.21, I believe it was, do so. And of course I did. I signed up because I've been meaning to do that for a while, and forgot that you can just do a quick auto donation every month on a credit card. And, it's tax deductible, I would assume. And, Lord knows I spend $7 on much more trivial things. So I got that set up, and I'll share a link to that program. And it's, for people that aren't from Athens, I always try to emphasize just how important you guys are. And I'm happy to be here in just a volunteer capacity. So I've tried to help spread the message a little bit too, without sounding like I work for the team. But I think the first time I came here, because I was looking for recording space and didn't realize that you guys did that, I was immediately struck with this reminder of my childhood, because my parents were, I hate to use the word poor, but we were very, they were musicians and artists, and we didn't have a lot. And I think it's important to support that community. And Athens has changed a lot since I was here. Just the whole, skyline is different. Prices have gone up. I still love coming here to eat, because you can get a great meal, that you can't get in Atlanta for a much more reasonable price. But anyway, I digress. So Nuçi's 50th birthday would have been yesterday. I'm excited about the 25th anniversary. I'm sure you guys will do something special for that too.
Yeah, we're excited too. The campaign 721 for Nuçi is an example of something that I was in charge of. And the idea came about because a member of our board of directors, Marissa Chastain, who works for the Chamber of Commerce, was just giving me some ideas to riff off of, because I chair the events and campaigns committee. And she was just telling me that, she loves campaigns that are like date for money equivalent campaigns.
I thought it was clever.
I was like, Nuçi's 50th birthday is in like 3 weeks. And so in a matter of days, I planned out this campaign, and I made all these graphics, and I wrote all this text, and I compiled email lists of like 30,000 contacts. But in my promoting of the campaign, one of the things that I found, because I skimmed through A Beautiful Here, which I skim through whenever I need. I think need sounds kind of shallow, but whenever I want to reflect Linda's voice, because I never had the pleasure of meeting Linda.
Same.
Linda passed away before I came to Nuçi Space. I skimmed through A Beautiful Here, and I find passages, and I found a passage, this happened to like stumble upon it, where Linda wrote that on the night of what would have been Nuçi's 32nd birthday, Linda was asleep and had a dream that she had gotten a call from Nuçi, and she knew in the dream that he was dead, but on the phone, he says to her something like, "Hey mom, I can't talk right now. I'm really busy. Let's chat later. Love you," And she, in the dream, hangs up the phone, and she drives to Nuçi Space, because she just thinks, it's so odd. He's busy. Like, what's going on? And she gets to Nuçi Space, and there's a party going on, and everyone greets her when she gets there and says, he's here. Nuçi's here. Nuçi's working at Nuçi Space. And I read that, and I thought it was so sweet. And then she writes, and the music keeps playing, and the mission continues, something like that. And I thought that was so beautiful and so true, because for most people that work here now, we never met Nuçi. David Barbie is one of the people that I probably see the most regularly who was friends with Nuçi back in the day. But for us that didn't meet him, everything that Nuçi space is because of Nuçi. And all that we're able to really know about Nuçi is given to us from the words of Linda or from the words of his friends. But celebrating his 50th birthday is such a big deal because of all the lives that Nuçi's life impacted, even without him knowing that was ever going to happen.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really is.
It's bizarre to try to put into words because it's not something that he probably outright would have anticipated or want. You couldn't have wanted, that in advance the way it was. But
for sure,
it's a beautiful thing to think that someone's 32nd birthday is part of a book. Their 50th birthday is a campaign that raised thousands of dollars and got, beautiful, beautiful messages and videos. And so many people, I believe yesterday I was looking at all of the responses on social media, but so many people just writing little passages about what his birthday means to them. People that also never met Nuçi. People, my coworker Terry wrote in a post on Facebook yesterday that every day when she passes the poster of Nuçi in our main common area, which is a very life-sized, blown-up poster of Nuçi, she says that she thinks of her son, and that's probably the main reason why she works here is for her son, Cass, who she sees in Nuçi. But yeah, I think it's beautiful that someone's birthday can touch so many people that maybe never knew them. For sure. Yeah, I wish I'd had the opportunity to meet Linda as well, and I was taken aback by how vulnerable she was in the book, but how fearless she was in telling the story. And just, it's hard to, for me, it would be very hard to lay everything out the way she did in such great detail. And so I think that's part of the reason why I've really been attracted to the space as well. So, yeah.
I'm not going to keep you too long because I'm going to be respectful of your time, but is there anybody or anything that you want to say to the general public, or has there been any? I want to give you the floor to give anybody any props or.
I would say that Nuçi Space is for you, regardless of who or where you're coming from. If you need help, we want to be able to help you. And if you are someone that aligns with our mission and has some, money to spare, we can so benefit from donations and from financial support because there are so many people that need our help. And you'd be amazed by how many faces and stories we interact with each and every day. And the last thing I would say is that coming up this fall, we have an auction with some rare B-52s memorabilia.
Yes.
And then we have Athens Uncovered, which is our annual fall fundraiser. And next year's our 25th anniversary. So there's a lot of big, fun things coming. And to stay tuned for all of those things and to follow along on our social media or in person or whatnot else.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if you ever want to check out some of the equipment that Nuçi's has here to sell, there is a Nuçi Space Facebook Marketplace page. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I bought a B-52's road case when I was here recently, and I'm going to put a glass top on it and make a table out of it. But just great prices on some really cool and things with some history in them. So yeah, definitely cool. We're trying to get more stories together of, when people come by, making sure that if they have a story to tell about the instrument they're giving us that we're, going to resell. I don't know if you saw the gigantic drum head last year, but I can send you the photo and the story attached to it, but someone donated a drum head last year that was something like 6 feet tall. Jeez.
Like 6 by 6 feet. And it's called Daisy, and there's a whole story behind it. But that was a really fun one. That was one you had to catch.
Okay.
That was a great story.
Goodness. All right. So one last thing before I let you go. I always ask everybody this because I'm curious. What kind of music are you listening to right now? What are you into?
I am currently listening to. either pretty aggressive pop music, which I've never been a pop girl. I really haven't, but this summer I'm really having like a fun pop summer with Sabrina Carpenter and Clairo and Fergie. But otherwise, the albums that I'm circling right now, you've probably never heard of. And I would be amazed if any of your guests have.
Tell me.
They are Jewish. I'm trying to think of the word for it. They're kind of like round room, live recorded nigunim, which means they're like tunes, Jewish tunes. But there's a series. There's a place called Hadar, which is a yeshiva in New York City, and there's a group called / like a collective called the Hadar Ensemble, and they record a lot of really, really, really beautiful albums with classic Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, and Sephardi tunes. And they bring in like lots and lots of instruments and like gorgeous 6-part harmonies. And I sent someone one of the albums recently because they were asking me for what I was listening to, and I was being honest, and I like shared it to them. And then I reminded myself that they have like 6 albums, and so I was circling through all of them just because they're so pretty. And so I'm pretty much bouncing between the incredibly niche, very, very mournful and beautiful and like joyous Jewish music, that I either grew up with or I feel a lot of comfort listening to, or I'm listening to like really aggressive and fun pop music.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Somebody turned me on to, I'll have to look it up on my phone, Alton Gunn. Have you ever heard of Alton Gunn? There's one other that I'll get with you offline, but it's like a Turkish band that someone turned me on to, and I'm forgetting their name off the top of my head, but it's like rock / electronica, and it's really good. I'll send it to you. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want people to not overlook Nuçi Space in this crazy growth that's happening in Athens right now, and the cause is near and dear to my heart. So I thank you for making some time in your day to share with me, and I'll be back soon to volunteer and see what you think.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Take me with you in the night, exploding in the sky, casting shadows in the light. Baby, don't go. Take me with you. All these journeys and plans we could share, or will the dreams we made together leave me lying lonely here? Lying lonely here, broken shutters flapping in the rain. The wind's crying. joined together, and I could